this car is annoyingly good. This is the 2019 Ford Fiesta ST with the Performance Pack and a little bit of extra spice from Revo. And today we're going to put this car through its paces, do a 0 to 60, see what the 30 to 70 time is, test the MPG, test what it's like on the motorway, and of course, see how fun it is to drive. So let's get into it. My name's Tom, and you are watching Paragon Cars. What better way than to start with the engine then? This is not only a regular 1.5 litre 3-cylinder Ford Fiesta ST Performance, but it is in fact a 1.5 litre Ford Fiesta ST Performance with the Revo Stage 1 package. In stock form, this thing makes 200 horsepower and 290 newton meters of torque, but with the Revo Stage 1 upgrade, this thing now makes 240 horsepower and 345 newton meters of torque. Then power goes to the front wheels only via a 6-speed manual gearbox, but because we have the Performance Pack, we now have a Quaife limited slip differential. So it's going to be pretty hairy on some B roads, I think. But before we see what it's like there, let's do the 30 to 70 sprint. Well, there's no beating around the bush on this one. This Fiesta ST beat a Mark III Ford Focus RS on the 30 to 70 sprint. That is absolutely mental when you consider this thing's still only got about 230 to 250 horsepower. But as you can see, a Stage 1 remap on this Ford Fiesta ST takes it to higher heights and makes it nearly as fast as some pretty serious hot hatches. Before we look at the inside, there's a couple of other things that I want to talk about in terms of the engine. One is that it's got cylinder deactivation. That's right, it can deactivate one of its cylinders within 40 milliseconds to improve fuel economy on the motorway. And then two, this is not the same as the 1 litre EcoBoost engine with a wet cam belt. This has a cam chain, which means it's much more reliable than the 1 litre EcoBoom. Then coming to the inside, this is a pretty big step up from the old Fiesta ST, I think, but it still looks pretty simple, all things considered. Except now we have shift lights and launch control. Having said that, keep in mind you only get that with the Performance Pack. Then one final thing to mention about the front of the interior of this car is that this is the ST3 model, so it comes with pretty much all the bells and whistles you can get on this thing, which I have to say is absolutely worth it when you consider the price difference between the ST1 and 2 and 3. It's just not that much. And one thing that is definitely worth getting if you're thinking of keeping this car for a while is the B&O sound system. Then coming to the rear, unfortunately it's still a Fiesta even though it's a 5-door, so as you can see there's not much legroom, and headroom as a 5'11" guy isn't that good either. Having said that though, I could probably do about 45 minutes in the back of this thing without getting too uncomfortable. Then coming to the boot, it's not bad. You've got enough room for about a weekly shop really. You've got some shopping hooks either side, a little weird storage thing down there, and then a couple of straps to hold some extra stuff. Then under the boot floor is your B&O subwoofer, some tyre filling foam, and a little funnel to put your screen wash in. Then once you've folded the rear seats down, as you can see, you don't really get a flat load floor. You've got quite a big hump to get things over, but the space is pretty good, and I think for a small car at the end of the day, it's a pretty decent amount of room. So for a small car, it's actually pretty decent in terms of interior space and technology, I think. But what's it like to drive? It's a Fiesta ST at the end of the day. It should be absolutely bonkers. So let's take it on the road now and see what she's like. I've been looking forward to this one for a while. It's been ages since I've driven, well, a manual car and a Fiesta ST, and what a car to drive. Stage 1 Mark 8 Fiesta ST. What's it like around town? Suspension is pretty stiff, you know, it's a Ford performance car at the end of the day. Feels sporty, as it should, just in regular mode. Everything feels pretty slackened off, but it's still quite nippy. It has this edge to it that I really like. Not quite as much edge as the slightly older Fiesta ST, the one from 2016, which is interesting. It's slightly softer. It's going to be interesting to see whether that means it's a little less fun on a B road later, but from the reviews I've seen of this car, I don't think it's going to be, especially considering we've got that limited slip differential. But yeah, going over bumps, it's absolutely fine. It's pretty comfortable. Steering is fairly light in normal. Clutch pedal's fairly light. And one thing I noticed is that it's quite a hard car to stall, actually. It's very forgiving. Then in terms of parking, this thing, it's a Ford Fiesta at the end of the day. Even though it's 5-door, it's still a really small car. Being the ST3 model as well, we get parking sensors and a very nice feature, which is a reverse camera with lines telling you where you're going to go. The refresh rate is high, and the quality is actually not bad in it as well. Even though we've got a very fast steering rack, there's still plenty of steering angle. Lock to lock is literally just 2 turns in this thing, so it feels super sporty round town. And then yeah, once you're in a space, getting out is very easy. It's a Ford Fiesta at the end of the day. Even the 3-door version of this car, very easy to get in and out of in small, tight spaces. So it's the perfect hot hatch for London, really, considering you can just about get 4 adults in this thing in a pinch. I love the thrum of this engine as well. When they announced this car with a 3-cylinder engine, I was very sceptical, but the sound of it is, it's kind of like an M4, you know. It's hard to describe, kind of inline 60. Anyway, coming out of junctions, that LSD kicks in, give it half throttle, and you absolutely rocket away into the rear end of a VW Tiguan. But, oh yeah, even though there's a bit of lag in the engine, there's still plenty of low-down torque actually, but the boost doesn't really come on until like 2,500 revs. Right, we're going to reset our MPG now to see what kind of MPG we can get on the motorway. According to Ford, this thing will do 47 MPG on the combined cycle, which is pretty damn impressive. And that's good, considering this thing only has a 42-litre fuel tank. So theoretically, it should do over 400 miles to a full tank, and just over 320 miles to 3/4 of a tank. Then in terms of cost, a full tank of fuel is about £61, and then 3/4 of a tank is about £46. So it's a pretty cheap car to run, all things considered, especially when you consider it's a hot hatch. But anyway, before we test out the MPG and the noise levels with my proper decibel reader, we are going to take this thing to a roundabout and see how it handles. Alrighty then, let's use our modes button, go straight for race mode. This will turn the traction control off, stiffen up the steering, increase the throttle response a little bit, and should make the car fairly lively. Wait for traffic to subside a bit. One thing I love about Ford performance cars is that the rear end is very easy to kick out, even though it's a front-wheel drive car, which is nice. Pops and bangs from the exhaust. Slam it into third. And yeah, stage 1 is pretty freaking fast, especially for a Fiesta, because it's a small car. It feels quick as well. But one thing I just can't get over, even though this is a stock car, the sound of the exhaust is just lovely in this. So thrummy, and you can really hear the little pops and bangs coming into the cabin. It's brilliant. And the steering is just so fizzy in your hands. It's absolutely wonderful. Oh, look at that. Proper Ford performance car there. 2.5 litre Ford Focus RS. That's what I'd have, I think. Doesn't handle as well as this, but the sound of that 2.5 litre engine is chef's kiss. Right, before I forget, let's get ourselves out of race mode, otherwise our fuel economy won't be so good. It definitely won't be 47 miles per gallon. But yeah, actually let's downshift to second first, so just accelerating in normal mode. God, the chassis is just good. It's so good. Getting up to 70, yeah, very easy. Properly quick, this thing, like properly quick. Then once we're on the motorway, being a high spec model, we got cruise control, and yeah, it's fairly quiet, all things considered. 70 miles an hour, not too much wind noise. There is a little bit coming from the B pillar back there, and road noise is, it's low enough. We're going to test out the real noise later though with my proper decibel reader, but yeah, visibility is good, seating position is nice, I can get nice and low. There is very little to complain about, considering this thing is a small hot hatch. Anyway, enough waffle, let's see what MPG this thing can manage on the average daily British commute. Alrighty then, little commute over of 14 miles. What did we do in terms of MPG? We have done 41.2 miles per gallon, which, all things considered, I think is pretty decent. I do find Fords never seem to quite get their claimed figures, but yeah, the cylinder deactivation tech definitely works in this thing. Then in terms of decibels, we did 75.7, which is pretty blooming good. That's only 0.9 decibels more than a BMW 1 Series and an Audi RS3. So, all things considered, that's very good. But, is this a fun car? Obviously it's fun, but how fun is it? Let's take it to a B road now and find out, shall we? Okay, a little brake test first, 100-yard marker. Oh, wow, yeah, the brakes are good in this thing. Even though they're quite small, the brakes are very, very effective. Oh, yeah. Then, in terms of sound, let's just get a little bit. I mean, it sounds great, in all honesty, but it's the handling that is really good. So, just coming off the throttle, you get lots of oversteer in race mode, and if you stay on it, if the van doesn't get in the way, it can absolutely fly around corners with that LSD. This thing is a B-road weapon! But it really is just the chassis for me. ESC fighting for its life there. Oh yes. You can really get a move on in this thing. I can't believe how good the brakes are as well. Absolutely stonking. So yeah, I mean, you could take this thing to a track and it would be absolutely brilliant. But what about a bumpy British B road? What's it like there? You know, the real world. Let's take this thing to one now and see what it's like. Oh, actually, before we do that, I think we should do a 0 to 60. Because even though this is a manual front-wheel drive car and 0 to 60s don't really matter, this does have a Revo remap, so it should theoretically be quicker, right? Let's go find out. Okay, to get this thing into launch control mode, you literally just go for race mode and click launch control on the dash, and that's literally it. Launch control ready. I am only going to do this once because it is a manual car and I don't want to completely ruin the clutch. But yeah, we shall see what we can do. In stock form, this is claimed to do 0 to 60 in 6.2 seconds. That's in perfect conditions, in all honesty. It's a manual car at the end of the day. In Revo remapped form, I'm guessing it's probably going to be slower, actually, because it'll be limited by traction. But I'm going to get all my racing driver excuses out the window and just go for it. So, left foot down on the clutch, right foot down on the throttle. Let's go. Feather it a bit. And that's 60. Let's pull over and see what we managed. Okay, let's see what we did. We did 6.64 seconds, yeah. So slower than the claim time, even though this is stage 1. But it's a dusty road. Okay, enough excuses. It is a dusty road though. But as you can see, my gear changes were friendly to the car, not too fast. But yeah, 6.64 seconds is still pretty good, nevertheless. Anyway, let's take this thing to a small B road now and see how it handles there. Okay, this is Fiesta ST prime territory. And especially when they're stage 1. Oh my lord. That diff coming out of corners is wonderful. Brakes, very good. Downshift. Okay, can we hit 60 before the corner? Short shift into second. Yes, we can. Stage 1 remap helping us out there. Oh, this thing is a proper weapon on a B road, man. Proper weapon. It's just coming into corners though, you can just slam on the brakes and the front end just tucks in so wonderfully. Oh yeah, what a machine, what a machine. I could literally drive down this road all day in this thing. It is just perfect. And because it's small, you just know you're going to fit. That diff is wonderful though. Yeah, you're going to be able to keep up with some much quicker cars down here, that's for sure. It's like a little rally car. Absolutely beautiful. Oh, hard on the brakes. Wrong gear. Yeah, this thing is a B-road monster. And the chassis is so dynamic, yet so controllable. Like, you could be a novice driver, chuck this thing straight in race mode, and you know what? I reckon you would be absolutely freaking fine in it. It's just so intuitive to drive. And with a stage 1 map, it just opens it up to even more fun, basically. It just feels like regular Fiesta, but better. Just more of the betterness. Oh, wow. Yeah. And it's such a shame because this car has such a stereotype attached to it. You know, a lot of people say the owners like getting slightly closer to primary schools than maybe they should, and etc. You get what I mean. But there's a reason these cars sell so much. It's because they're just good. They're brilliant cars. And when you consider, I mean, the price of this one is less than 15 grand now, and it's done, what, 46,000 miles. There'll be a link down in the description below, by the way, if you want to go and have a look at it. But it's just so much car for the money. It's efficient on the motorway. It's pretty quiet. You know, it's not much louder than a premium hatchback. On the interior, you can fit 4 adults in it in a pinch. I mean, what doesn't it do? It literally does everything. It does the weekly shop, and it's absolutely bloody brilliant to drive. There is not a car that comes to mind that is more fun than this to drive on a British B road to me. There just isn't. And it's front wheel drive. I've driven a GR Yaris, an MX-5. Basically every fun car you can think of, I've gotten behind the wheel of on a B road. And I mean, the Mark 8 Fiesta ST, I just don't think there's anything better. I'm not lying to you. I really cannot think of a more fun car than this, especially for the money. I would rather be driving this down a beat road than a supercar. I'm absolutely not telling a word of a lie there. It's more fun than a Lamborghini Huracan down a small road like that. Because in a supercar you're worried about bottoming out, you're worried about clipping the trees, about oncoming traffic because you're in something wide. You know, maybe on a track, obviously a supercar is going to be better, right? But for the everyday driver, you don't get much better. You really don't. And on that note, I think we should finish up the review there, I think. As always, if you enjoy content like this, please give us a like, and why not subscribe, as it really helps us out. Only 9% of our viewers are actually subscribed, so yeah. Please subscribe if you are watching, because it does make a difference. Then of course there'll be a link down the description for the car in the video, and there'll be a link to the generic website as well if you can't quite get past the stereotype of this thing. But honestly, check it out, it's such a good car. So much fun. And honestly, if you're thinking about buying a Hyundai i20N or 30N even, just drive one of these quickly first. Just do it. Even in normal mode, you'll feel the chassis and the steering. Oh, it's just gorgeous. You can probably tell in the tone of my voice that I'm just amped up. And that's what this car does to you. It's just fun. If you're thinking about buying a Polo GTI, for goodness sake, just don't. This is better. It's better in every conceivable way. The interior of the Polo might be a bit more flash. This is better. It's just better. But anyway, my name has been Tom, and you have been watching Paragon Cars. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. I'm going to go back to a beer now and have some more fun, I think.